Years ago, back in college, there was a movie that Ashley and I went to, and it was a comedy, but it was called Kindergarten Cop. And I know it's old, but there's this scene in there where basically here's the story, and I'm not giving it away. It's too old for it to be a plot twist for you. But in this movie, it is an undercover cop who is going to be a kindergarten teacher. And this kindergarten cop is doing his best he can to keep control. He's never really been a teacher before, and he's doing everything he can, and the room is going chaotic. It's not going as planned. Kindergartners are being kindergartners. And there's this great quote in this movie where one of the other teachers tells the kindergarten cop, says, you know, that kindergartners are like the ocean. You never turn your back on them. And when he turns around to investigate what she's talking about, the room is going crazy. Kids are doing all kinds of stuff that they're not supposed to do, and papers everywhere. There's noise, they're running. It is not like it should be. And he is dealing with one issue after another, and the pressure is starting to mount. And the kids are getting louder, and they're getting more chaotic, and things are going more and more crazy. And finally, the cop just blows his top and yells, "Shut up." And he doesn't do it once. He does it multiple times. And the more he yells, the louder he gets, the more he screams. Then the kids begin to just stop. Sheer panic and fear. And then they do what none of us want. They begin to cry. And it's in that moment that the cop realizes that he has gone too far, that it has been the last straw in what is taking place. That something maybe even minor that is taking place in the classroom shoves him over the edge because it has just piled up so high, and so high. Now, I don't know if you have ever felt like that, where when things were just kind of building, and then all of a sudden, you just erupt. I have. I know that I have. You know, for most of us this year, 2020 has really kind of piled up on us. If you go back in your memories from the first of the year, we began kind of hearing about COVID, and it was kind of mythical at first, that it was something that was happening in far off lands. We didn't have it. But then slowly, our world began to change. There was the shutdown of work and school and high school activities, sports. They began to change. They stopped. I mean, we ran out of toilet paper. I mean, holy cow. Your vacations, your spring break plans, they were no more. Weddings had to be rescheduled. Funerals didn't really happen. Our worship changed. We weren't allowed to meet in person for a time. And pressure began to mount. And COVID really did begin to impact us physically. There were people that were actually getting sick and dying. There were times that it became very real to us, and it was mounting. We had never, as a people, as anybody that was alive in our world right now, very few people had ever experienced anything like this before. And as a group, as a people group, collectively, the pressure was really building. The United States, as our country, we became more and more divided. How we responded to COVID was nobody could agree. Tension began to mount. Tension started building over everything. There was racial tension. There was tension over the politics. And even right now in this election year, and as many have casted their votes this past week, and it just kept bounding. And the layers, they just kept coming. And they just kept building, and the pressure, and they're piling on and piling on. And then what happens is you and I begin carrying that load, and everything just builds upon us. It became more and more difficult to function. And finally, what happens when everything piles on and becomes that last straw? We erupt over the last thing and not the first thing. We erupt over the last thing and not the first thing. You know what I mean? You've had this terrible day. You just want to get home and someone pulls out in front of you. You lose your mind screaming at your steering wheel like they can hear you. Maybe it's you've had that day, you've had that week, that month, and the server forgets to refill your beverage in a timely manner. Maybe it's over the weekend and you think you're finally going to rest and the kids get you up early and you've asked them to go out and rake the leaves, but they did it all wrong. They put all the leaves inside your car. Maybe it's your spouse didn't respond quick enough. Maybe you go to a work or to a family member's home where you feel undervalued or taken for granted. We erupt, we launch, we forget. So here's what I want you to do. In your home or your car or your workplace, wherever it is, if you don't have anybody, if you're by yourself, please jump in the chat room. Or maybe as a family, you use the chat room together. But this is the question for you. What has been your breaking point? What has been the moment where you felt like you erupted in 2020? Now, just take a moment and do this now. So let me just tell you, to be clear, the next 3 weeks, we're going to be digging down and remembering what we are thankful for in the midst of the chaos. Everybody has it piling on, every one of us. Nobody is exempt. This year has been completely off the chart wild. None of us could have expected it. But we get some wisdom from Paul in 1 Thessalonians 5, 16 through 18. This is what he says. In the midst of turbulence, in the midst of chaos, this is what he says. He goes, rejoice always. Pray continually. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. So what we're going to do today is we have a real life story that's going to be shared for you from one of your own, somebody that's a part of the tribe, that they have been here for 20 years, and you're going to hear their story of what's been taking place in their life and also their response in 2020. BRITT and Linda Shipley, their kids and grandkids have been a part of this church for a long time. But what I want you to do is you listen to this story. You listen to the obstacles that have been overcome. You start really listening and applying to what you hear to your own life, your personal life. Maybe you got to ask that one question. What am I thankful for? What am I going to be thankful for in the midst of the chaos? What am I going to be thankful for? Now watch this with me.
Hey VNC, thank you for joining us today. I've got my friends BRITT and Linda Shipley with us today, and they're going to help us out by just telling a little bit of their story. So welcome, BRITT, Linda. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. And they've been members and been a part of this tribe for 20 years and have really served in about every capacity I think we've got, from changing diapers to leading classes to motorcycle rides to mission trips. to everything in between. So thank you for 20 years of giving and serving here and being a part of this family, this tribe. Britt and Linda's children and grandchildren, and they're a part of this and part of this story and been a part of VNC for as long as they've been alive. And so I just want to kind of start off and just, it's been a kind of a crazy 2020, but your story kind of begins about 8 years ago. And Linda, can you just tell us a little bit about what happened December 31st?
2012.
2012.
Britt had been having some pressure in his back, a little bit of pain, but nothing severe. So typically he did not go to the doctor and finally made an appointment for January the 2nd. But on the 31st of December, we decided we're such a fun couple, we would just spend it in the ER at Porter Hospital.
Who doesn't want to do that?
That's right.
So we went there thinking, whoa, we'll have an antibiotic for this self-diagnosed kidney infection. And after about 4 hours, a doctor walked into that room and said, "You have a large mass consistent with renal cell carcinoma." Words that we will never forget. Life-altering, but not the end of the world. You think when you hear a cancer diagnosis that, it's just going to be devastating. It was devastating because we were in shock. But over the next 8 years, God has been, from that moment that he sent us to that ER, in control.
Wow.
So the worst part right then was we had to call our kids who knew where we were and tell them, because we were going to see them the next day. So we all sat in shock. We kept our doctor's appointment on that 2nd, and our doctor already knew, thanks to technology, everything that we had learned, and he agreed with our decision to go to Chicago. And his son, who is professor at the University of Wisconsin, recommended that we go to the University of Chicago. And God's hand was in that. He took us to doctors and staff that are just so amazing to this day. And believe me, we've had many. Britt had his first surgery where they removed his kidney along with a tumor the size of a softball.
Wow.
And his doctor was introduced to us as the world renowned, who teaches this procedure. And so we thought, in our naive way, that, okay, we're good to go. Why are they sending us to an oncologist? And now we know, because that cancer, the cells had escaped and would now create tumors wherever they decided. So we went through radiation twice for 2 different tumors in the scapula and in the cheek. But what I call the pesky brain tumor has been the one since 2015 that really changed our lives.
Right.
But again, doctors are amazed because he came through all 3 brain surgeries, and they thought he would lose his vision completely. But even 3 years after the last brain surgery, he still has part of his vision, enough to get around, enough to look at his phone and the TV, and really do so many things. Our life has changed. We live in 3-month increments now, because that's when we go and spend the day testing.
Right.
But we are so blessed in so many ways by every doctor, all of our friends that have prayed, and the lives that our stories have touched, in the hospitals, in the waiting rooms, and just people that we meet, that we can truthfully say, God is there every step of the way. And no matter what difficulties you face, there are so many good things, so many blessings that you have left. Life is still good, and we would never say that it is not.
Wow. So just so everybody knows this, that 6 weeks after the kidney removal, Britt went with me for 2 weeks to the Azores, and we did a mission trip. And
And the doctor told us I could go.
yeah, that's right. The doctor said you could go, and Linda made me promise to bring him home. So we did, and it's worked out. I do love the fact that he's used this vision thing to get a video wall for a TV. Well played. Well played. Well, Britt, so, as Linda's kind of laid out the story, and I know there's 1,000 more details and countless surgeries, and it's just unbelievable. In the last 8 years, what do you say, just some of the top things that have changed in your life?
Well, I think the first one, which is obvious to most people that know us, is I had to quit work. I couldn't see. The treatments and radiation is damaged, and the tumor has damaged my optic nerves. So I don't see well. My left eye, I don't see much of anything out of my left eye. And so I can't drive any longer. There's a lot of things I can't do very well. I can't read very well. The driving was probably the big one. That was the one that bothers me to this day. Still bothers me that I can't drive. I have a driver's license, but I can't drive.
And I know you had to give up your Harley.
I gave him my Harley. Yep, gave him my Harley. But that's a plus there, though.
Okay.
That since my grandson now has the Harley.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the work. I wasn't ready to retire, but I had no choice because of my vision and because of driving. I had no choice but to retire. And although I enjoy being home and I enjoy the doing nothing, I miss work.
Right.
It was a big part of my life, obviously, because of all the stuff I've done, places I've gone, and I've had a pretty good career. But I had to stop driving. What else have I had to give up? Just so many little things. The tinkering around in the garage. I can't see stuff very well. I tend to hit myself on fingers if I try to hammer things, so we try to avoid that. I've been given instructions that I can't go on a ladder any longer.
Yeah, that's true.
From more than just my wife.
Yeah, from most of us, we've said that.
Exactly.
You're not allowed.
Exactly.
Not allowed.
Exactly. I still miss that. Like I say, jumping in a car and going someplace. Jumping in the car and going grab a bite to eat. Running the hardware store. I don't do any of that anymore. But I'm so thankful for all of the people, primarily the group in this church, that'll pick me up for lunch and take me any place I want to go. And I've made them all a promise: as long as they'll drive, I'll buy lunch.
There you go. Well, your life group has been instrumental in
Yes.
in your life, walking with you this number of years and being a part of the journey. And so we can't speak highly enough of living in community and what that really does for us. So,
Yes.
Well,
Sandy has been testimonies to that.
Yeah. Well, we've said for this past how many years we've been in this life group, our life group is our family. They've been with us when we've cried, when we laughed. We've prayed together, we've talked together, we've cried together.
Yeah.
As a group.
So, guys, tell me, when you start thinking about how's this affected your family? The kids, the grandkids, what if you guys could summarize that? How's this been an impact on your kids? And we know your family's really close. You guys are always together. Good, bad, and ugly. You guys are always together, right? So how's this been an impact on the family?
It's been very difficult for them because our dynamics have changed. Britt always drove. He always made reservations, flight things. That was what he did. And for me to have to get involved in that, driving and just so many things, and our kids see that, and that's what they've lived with their whole life. So it's very different. But when things were really tough, I had close friends say, "Do you realize you and Britt are showing your family, your girls and your grandchildren, how to go through hard times?" And I never thought of it like that. I was just kind of trying to survive a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And with that perspective, it really made me pay attention to a lot more of how we did things.
Jennifer and Stephanie, your mom and dad don't know this part of the video, so thanks for helping me out. There'll be a little surprise for them when we watch this. So we just asked them how this has affected the family and everything they've gone through the last 8 years. And obviously 2020 hasn't been the year we all wanted it to be. So in your words, what would you think? What has been the big challenges that how this has affected your family?
I would say it's been a roller coaster. So, the diagnosis to even just this last August when he was hospitalized and nobody could really figure out what was going on. So I think we go from here to here to here, and it's been kind of a constant for 8 years. And, that's emotionally draining on all of our families, on all of our kids, on my mom. My mom having to become the caregiver has become a totally different piece as well. And all of us trying to help her where we can, I would say.
Yeah. I think that it's different for each of our kids because of the ages they are and how it affects them differently. The little ones just are, we know Papa's sick, and the older ones, I think, struggle with wanting answers, specifics.
Right.
I mean, we do, but we know who to turn to.
Yeah.
But that's harder for the kids.
Okay. So in this journey that your mom and dad have been on, you've witnessed the way they've handled it, the way they've handled the ups and downs that you're talking about. So what has really kind of stood out to you in this whole journey with them?
I would say their faith. I mean, I said it with Jacob, but how people do things in life when they have such traumatic events in their life without God is beyond me. But, my dad can be coming out of brain surgery and ministering to the aide who walks him in a wheelchair down to, an MRI. And, knowing where he's going, I think is even a bigger plus. But, his faith and both of them and who they turn to.
Yeah, I would agree. I think one of the most impactful stories I remember from this whole journey is him really sharing the power of prayer with one of the nurses, the main nurses with his oncologist at University of Chicago. And he tells that story, but that's just one of many people that he's been able to point to Christ during this. And the example that that's been for our children specifically is really powerful to me, because it's definitely the hardest thing as a family we've ever gone through. And so for him to continually be able to point them to Christ through that, I know will leave a legacy. And I think something else that I'm extremely thankful for that I can look back on is my dad's never lived with regrets. He's eaten the cake, he's bought the shoes, he's traveled the world literally. And I'm so grateful for every opportunity that he had, and I know God prepared him for that. And I'm so grateful for that.
All right, last question for you. So when we look at 2020, obviously has not been the year that we would all hang up as our favorite. And there's been a lot of change for you guys personally. You've relocated, you've changed some things in your lives, and it's been a constant kind of a metamorphosis of everything that's evolved from 2012. What are you thankful for in 2020?
I'm thankful for this whole family that we have. I mean, as Linda just talked about, the kids and grandkids, I'm so thankful for my kids. They're always there to give me a hand if I need a hand, to give me a ride someplace I need a ride someplace. But I'm also thankful this year for my test results. My last MRI 2 months ago showed the tumor has continued to shrink. And although there's a little tumor still there, we think that it maybe is just residual, not active tumor. And I mean, I'm so thankful for that.
That's good. It's real good.
I'm thankful because I've learned with everything I've had to take over this year, getting us moved, getting our other house up for sale, BRITT being hospitalized and in rehab this summer. And I was so exhausted that I would go to bed and think, I don't know how I can do this again tomorrow. And every night, God would renew that strength. So it made me know, no matter what, everything I've always known to be true, even in these hardest times, God is always there, and it helps me to trust every situation.
What are you thankful for right now?
Well, right now, to still have him.
Yeah.
And we don't take that for granted. I think once you walk this journey, you don't ever take that for granted. Every minute we get, every
A 5-minute
holiday,
conversation is
the little things.
treasured.
I'm thankful for all the trips that I've been able to take with my grandpa over the years, especially the baseball games that we've been able to enjoy together over the course of his journey.
I'm thankful that he's still healthy today and is able to come to my baseball games.
That me and my dad got to do the Harley rides together.
I'm thankful for his birthday and the Cubs game.
I'm thankful that my grandpa could come to my baseball games and that he could enjoy those precious times with my family.
For the food that he makes for me.
I'm thankful for how my grandpa comes to my soccer games and he makes food when I want him and he's there when I need him.
I am thankful for Britt and Linda in that they have modeled how to do family in a great way for me.
I am thankful for all the memories we have built the last 3 years.
I am thankful for the love and the strength and the storm that my parents have shown me. No matter how hard it may be, you always get up and serve the Lord through everything.
Well, I can tell in some of the things we've talked about, there's always been this positive outlook. No matter what the test results are, no matter what the doctor says, then we're going to be okay. And I've appreciated your story. One of the things you shared with me was that the situation is really hard. It's really tough, but we're not going to be defined by that. And that we are going to be defined by what God's actively doing in our life and in our story. And so on behalf of VNC, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm so thankful that you guys, for whatever reason, 20 years ago, chose to be here and have continued to invest in the lives of our people. You talk about the life group, but that life group also talks about how you have given to them. And so it goes all the way. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. Thank you so much for being a part of the story.
What an amazing story of how God has been present in their lives and walked with them all along, listening to children and grandkids and Britt and Linda talk about what they're thankful for. We want to capture what you are thankful for. Maybe in a day where we are celebrating, maybe not celebrating, maybe we just are always reminded of the hard. We're always reminded of the challenges. We're always reminded of the chaos. That many of us are walking around right now with that last straw, ready to erupt. We need to remember, what are we thankful for? We need to hold on to, what are we thankful for? That when it gets unbelievably challenging at work or family or home or wherever you may be, and you just think, this is the time I got to blow my top, I got to erupt, that we'll remember, what are we thankful for? So what I want you to do, you are online right now, and just jump in the chat room. If you have not logged in and you are just participating, please pull your car over. Stop what you're doing at work just for a few moments. Share with your online campus pastor right now what you're thankful for. We want to capture all that information, and we've got a thankful board that we're going to be filling out, that we'll be discreet in what you say, we'll be discreet with your names, but we want to capture this information because we're going to hang this up, we're going to share this information. We need to be encouraged. You and I are doing this together. We're going to rejoice always. We're going to pray continually, and we're going to give thanks in all circumstances because this is God's will for us through Jesus Christ, that we will be thankful.